Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm your host, Larry Ziliaks, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. This week, our guest is Jeffrey Sapp. He's a retired Navy captain, and he authored a paper and a TED Talk that caught my attention, and it's called Cancer Didn't Kill Me, but Disastrous Government Funding Cuts to Cancer Research Might. And I asked Jeffrey to join us. He has primary plasma cell leukemia. September is Leukemia Awareness Month, so I wanted him to come on and talk about his journey and some of the research that affected his life and the cuts that may come to that. I think, Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Larry. Pleasure to be here.
So if you would, for our listeners, explain to them what a Navy captain is, because they might be used to Air Force, Army, Marine Corps captain is a little bit different.
A little bit different. Well, in the Navy, we work for a living. That's the first difference. Now, Air Force and Army are great guys. It is equivalent to a lieutenant colonel, a colonel in the Air Force, Army, and other services.
Okay, so you would be in the Navy, you would be a commander, would be a lieutenant colonel, and then a captain would be full bird,
Yes,
colonel.
Yes. Sir.
Okay, good. Talk a little bit about the start of your career, when you joined. I know you're a graduate of the Naval Academy. You played football for the Naval Academy, which is really cool. When was that? When did you join?
1973.
Wow.
My dad was focused on getting one of his sons into an academy.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest brother went to Vietnam. He's off the table. My second oldest brother went to the FBI Academy. He's off the table. Come to Jeffrey, he was the last one there. Now, this is high school. I had over 62 athletic scholarships or letters of intent, to go to schools. I didn't need any of this stuff, but he really pressed and said, I really want you to do that. He's an old Army guy. And back in the day, if you're black, you couldn't be an officer. And if you did, during the war, they promote him up and then put him back down to warrant after that. So he wanted really to see one of his sons come out as an officer. And he put the pressure on. I like to say we took a vote about if we're going to go or not. I won the vote. He vetoed the vote, and I went to the Naval Academy.
Okay.
While I was there, I felt outclassed. They have some very intelligent people there and fantastic faculty. I had to struggle, and there were some times they wanted to invite me to go home. But I stuck in there, got my grades up, went great, made it to graduation. And by the way, I didn't graduate at the bottom,
Okay.
which amazes me based on my performance. I got out, I became what they call a surface warfare officer, going to sea. You have submarines, you have pilots, you have surface warfare officers. So I went to sea. Long story short, 11 and a half years at sea is what I spent, which was fantastic. The best part about that, though, was as I got more mature, more senior, I actually got command of a ship. And I got command of another ship.
Wow.
Another ship. 6 ships. The best one was the destroyer, USS Ingersoll DD-990.
Wow.
That's the one that I would die for to go back to take command of.
Wow.
And being in command of a warship is a beautiful thing. Came ashore, went basically strategy, policy, things like that. I did have an opportunity to serve as a senior aide-de-camp to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is really interesting, and deputy director of the Navy-wide personnel system, which was kind of cool with it. So I've been at some pretty good high levels with my career. Towards the end, when I decided to get out to retire after 30 years, I ended up going to doing motivational speaking, that's my mainstay, motivational speaking to encourage people, inspire them to achieve higher levels of success. I also did business consulting and leadership consulting and being a leadership advisor. I was that for Department of Homeland Security, for National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Gosh, can't think of the other ones that I was, but it all was helping like federal agencies increase the performance of their workforce.
Right.
So it gave me a little bit of experience there.
Tell a little bit about that period of time where you started to get sick. And my recollection is you're overseas on assignment and then came back to the States for medical treatment and testing. And then there's a point in time where doctors say to you, you have a very serious illness, and it's a very rare illness, and it has a very low mortality rate. So when was that? What was that like?
2019. And in 2018, I took a job with a defense contractor to work in Saudi Arabia, work and live in Saudi Arabia, overseeing projects that supported the Royal Saudi Naval Forces. So I was in their headquarters and speak with the admiral every day and other folks like that. The exciting part of it was like a clean sheet to apply my knowledge and my skills to, and it was going great. I made great associations and great friends with the Saudis. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind going back there and living because they treated me very well. And if you reciprocate it, they treated you even better. So that's how I was doing. And then all of a sudden, I started feeling really tired. Not tired like I woke up in the morning, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I felt fatigued. I was losing weight. I couldn't urinate. I felt dizzy and confused. And everyone said, go see a doctor. No, not, I'm suck it up, buttercup. Finally, I went to go see a doctor. They went in Saudi. They ended up hospitalizing me for 5 days. They said I had something called monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined source or significance, which was, it's like a precursor to cancer. Not everyone who has it, called MGUS for short, everyone with MGUS doesn't develop cancer, but some do. I was one of the some that did. So when they saw that, they figured that two reasons. To get lab work over in Saudi sometimes takes a day, a month, a week. They suggested I come back to the States where I can get better treatment where they do it more often for cancer. In case I had it, they thought it was coming on. So they medevaced me. They discharged me on a Friday afternoon. I think it was Friday afternoon. They flew me Friday night to the United States. I arrived the next day, went to an ambulance, went right to MedStar Georgetown University Hospital, where they had a room waiting for me and put me right in. And that's when I started to think that something more is going on.
Yeah.
While I was in the room, they were doing blood tests to confirm things. I developed pneumonia. I had extreme pain in my body. And the doctors decided that it was life-threatening, and so they put me in intensive care. And that's where I stayed for the next 45 days.
Wow.
Until they let me go and to do more stuff. While I was in the hospital, the doctor came out and told my wife before all of this started, he goes, I got to tell you that he may not go home. Basically, that or die there with it. It turned out I had so much of the cancer in my body. Primary plasma cell leukemia is a blood-borne cancer. When it's in you, you can't radiate it, you can't cut it out. It is all over the place. And what had happened with me dragging my feet, seeing a doctor and taking my time, it started to build up. Cancer had a very good foothold in my body. And so what the doctors ended up doing to save my life, I went through 5 consecutive days of chemotherapy. Try one. Not fun.
Yeah.
Try 5. I also went through dialysis, 24-hour dialysis by my bedside to change out the toxins in my blood because my kidneys had shut down. There's something called M protein that gets into your kidneys, kind of shuts them down. So they zapped me with chemo. They zapped me. They gave me the dialysis, and then they started to treat me. Now, I still got chemo every other day or some frequency there, but they had to go in and kill what was there. And chemo, as you know, wipes everything out. It's not a whole lot of fun. But that got me on track and went to the next phase of my treatment.
All right. Which part of your treatment would you say was the most successful or brought you the most relief?
Brought me the most relief is called CAR T cell therapy.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of neat, and this is also why I'm an advocate for research funding and why we got to keep it up. 20, 30 years ago, you never would have imagined CAR T. No one did. And back then, you go back about 10, 20 years, when people got primary plasma cell leukemia, the longevity was 7 months to 12 months, depending on what study you look at. And then if you did well and you got over it, it never, ever really went away. It's in your system because the cancer's there.
Sure.
So what CAR T does is this. They take your body, they zap it with chemo, they kill the cells again. This is leading up to the treatment, where I was hospitalized, I think, for 30 days. While I was zapped, they took out my T cells, immune cells, sent them off to a laboratory, and they re-engineered them to go specifically after cancer.
Right.
It's like a special ops team is to the military. It's specifically, so it doesn't go after my hair, it doesn't go after my liver, my heart. It goes right there. And you know what? It was an interesting way that they gave it to me and how I had responded. But in the long and short of it, it killed the cancer. It didn't kill all the cancer. I'm what they call near complete remission.
Okay.
I still have cancer. I will always have cancer. I'll probably die of cancer.
Right.
That's not a problem. But the CAR T, better than the chemotherapy, was able to get me on steady state. I have not, since 2023, have not had chemotherapy.
Wow.
And up to that point, I've been through 4 different treatments, multiple variations of chemo drugs and anti-cancer drugs. It put me in remission temporarily, but then it always come back.
Right.
So that's when the doctor said, we have a clinical trial you should go for, and for CAR T therapy, explained what it was. And they're very, very careful about it.
Yeah. So they take these T cells out of your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel different?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
And when they put them back in, the new recharged ones, did you feel any different?
No, sir.
No, you don't feel any different.
One thing about that, I got to tell you, I mean, this is some high level stuff. Taking a cell, re-engineering it and giving it back. I mean, you talk death, you talk illness, you talk all sorts of stuff could be associated with it. To make sure that it took, and also to make sure that I didn't suffer from neurotoxicity.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of their main things to see if they took. If I started to act goofy and my brain power was starting to die, they could do something else. So the way they checked that, they gave me a statement to read, and it says, I got my super cells at VCU.
Mm-hmm.
You had to read that, and simple enough to do. And you also had to write, I got my super cells at VCU. And then a nurse would come in and say, what's that on the wall? A clock. What's that? A desk. What's that? A pencil. Okay, you're doing fine with it. I thought it was kind of silly, but you know what? There's a time, and I have it in my book, I'm coming out with an example of it, where my writing was eloquent. It was perfect. And then on day 5 after the transplant, it looked like a kindergartner writing.
Wow.
I couldn't read it myself with it. And then I couldn't say what the T cells did for me and anything like that. So I was hinting on the neurotoxicity. They got on top of it. They fixed it. Discharged me for 30 days. I had to live next to the hospital for 30 days, going every single day to be checked to make sure that the T cells were doing what they're doing.
And so when you were writing and it was going south on you, did you realize it or?
No.
Yeah.
I did not. I did not at all. I had trouble doing the letters, but in my mind's eye, I was doing great.
Right.
But if you look at it, and again, I put it in my book, but you look at when I first started, it looks great. Look at that one day. And that was a tipping point for me. That one day where I was totally jacked up, they got on top of it and got me back on track, and I did great.
So that was something that they did every day to just check cognitively that you were maintaining
Yes, sir.
A straight line.
Every single day.
And so this program was experimental. This is not a therapy that is it available today to anybody who wants it, needs it, or is it still in the experimental stage?
It's still experimental. The clinical trials is where the experiment comes in. It's experimental to the sense that it's accepted by FDA, but they're still kind of checking it out.
Right.
And so I'm part of that. The one thing with me, because I had dialysis, I had my kidney wiped out, they ended up making my own unique FDA clinical trial with CAR T therapy to see how I reacted to it with the kidney not being
As
there.
opposed to other people who didn't have that kind of
Yes,
situation.
sir. Yes, sir. And it turned out that it did well. When I went back up, follow up, it turns out that they used what they learned from me as a protocol for helping other people.
And do they, the folks behind the clinical trial, have any sort of understanding or maybe an estimate of when they believe that this might be a therapy that's available to anybody who needs it out of clinical trial, but into mainstream medical treatment?
Never had that conversation.
Wow. Okay.
I was just happy to be alive with it. The only thing that they told me, the doctor said, because they said, well, how long is this going to last? He says, T cells are the gift that keeps on giving. Once they're in your system, they should continue running the course. If they don't, then we'll go to another level.
Right.
Like I said, since 2023, no chemotherapy. I've been feeling well. I have days when I'm off a little bit. I have part when my cognitive dissonance gets jacked up because of the
medication.
Cancer. Yeah, the medication and the cancer.
Sure.
But other than that, I'm starting to become myself again. I've not been that since I was sick, where I have this energy. You wake up tired. You go to sleep tired. I can sleep for 5 hours or I can sleep for 8 or 10. I still feel fatigued.
Yeah.
And that's just something I got to deal with.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how critical funding is for this type of research. I mean, is it done at NIH or is it done at a university and funded by NIH? Or
it's done at a university. It's funded, I think, by private sector and the NIH.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in that level, but the university, and I forget the doctor's name that came up with this. They came up with the CAR T therapy. They ran it through FDA, got approved to do the clinical trial. Now they do CAR T therapy for at least 3 types of leukemia.
Wow.
Plasma cell leukemia being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of ran the whole show. And I think the money was part government, part private sector.
Sure.
Bristol Myers Squibb was the folks that kind of stepped up to the plate for me.
On the pharmaceutical side.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, clearly, this type of long-term research can't take place unless it's subsidized. I mean, it can be subsidized for a while by corporations and maybe universities, but without government funding, it's eventually going to dry up. And part of the problem there is that when research goes away, so do research scientists.
Absolutely.
And then they end up going to work in maybe Canada or Switzerland or other countries that are opening their doors and moving there very easy.
Yep.
Because they value knowledge and expertise, and it's a drain on this country to see research end and research scientists leave. What's the best way for our listeners to alert their elected officials that this type of cancer research, and all cancer research really, needs to continue to be funded?
Before I answer that, let me tell you one thing about the funding, why it's so critical. Based on who you talk to, my treatment was $450,000.
Oh.
And you don't find that laying around. I was at the hospital after the treatment for 10 days, and I was out for 30 days coming back in. Quite a bit expensive to it. And without that money, I wouldn't have been able to go through what I went through.
Well, insurance is not going to pick that up.
Oh, heck no. No, I didn't with it. But that's why this funding is critical. It's also the research. You got to keep the research going, because you don't just wake up one day and say, aha, I have a solution. They kind of build on it, build on it, build on it. And I'm living proof of that. And when they got something like the CAR T cell therapy, they apply it and it starts to work. Now they got to improve that, because the cancer is never going to go away.
Yeah.
That's a fact. For someone who is interested in wanting to be an advocate, to learn more, or to be engaged, is number one, learn a little bit about cancer. I was one of those guys, I would never get cancer. I wouldn't talk with anyone who had cancer. It's just, I felt awkward. I had a certain image in my mind. And so I did not understand anything about it. Once you understand just a little bit about it, I'm not talking about writing a thesis, just a little bit about it, do a Google search, you can understand the setting, the context. After you do that, I would say, read my paper. My paper on the CAR T, or the cancer didn't kill me, but these funding cuts might, because in there I talk specifically about the risk that were taken when they cut funding. When you cut funding for someone who has cancer, it's like taking a life vest off of someone who is drowning and calling it budget reform. Absolutely goofy. How in the heck they can do that? So people who come behind me are less likely to, be treated like I was if there's no funding for it.
Yeah.
So people die. So legislators basically are making life and death decisions on who lives and who dies. When all along, all you got to do is just fund that, keep it going, keep the scientists going, keep them in America where you need them, keep fighting for a cure. And the one thing I found with the research scientists I talked to, they get that cure and they're working on it, but then they start working on something, a spinoff from it. Yeah. And thank God they did, because they found another way to combat the leukemia.
Well, September is Leukemia Awareness Month, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this and get it right out there at the beginning of the month and say, I would bet for most of our listeners, they know someone who has cancer, someone in their family or someone they work with or go to church with. And I will have a link to Jeffrey's paper in the show notes, and I encourage everybody to read that, because I think all too often we say, okay, Aunt so-and-so has cancer. Oh, that's terrible. But we really don't know much about that journey and what they go through.
Yeah.
And this paper that Jeffrey did in telling his story gives you a sort of window into that journey, which is so important for people to understand, so that they can put a face and a story to the need to fund cancer research. It's not going to go away, like you say. And when you have a clinical trial, clinical trials are based on safety. The whole idea with a clinical trial is to get a product, get a medicine, and to prove it, that it works and that it's safe. And the way that they determine that it's safe is look at the data. And if you have a data and then all of a sudden there's a break and it just stops, then it's almost useless in that sense. If you pick it up in a couple of years, you almost have to start over.
You do.
And so it's vital that the research for leukemia and all the different types of cancers continue out there. So listeners, I encourage everybody to talk to people that you know that have made that journey. Ask them to tell you what it was like, what it was like to get that diagnosis, what it was like to go through the treatment, not only the medical aspect, but the insurance aspect, the Medicare aspect, the VA aspect, if they are a veteran. And we know that there are a lot of veterans that have cancer and cancer-related illnesses from their time in service. You especially, the type of work that you did in the Navy exposed you to something that in all likelihood impacted your medical condition. But then there are veterans out there who were exposed to Agent Orange,
Yep.
to burn pits, to all sorts of JP4 and chemicals related to their job, whether it's solvents, working on refinishing aircraft, or whether it's the fuel that goes into aircraft. You know, service members are around all sorts of chemicals and all sorts of things that, if not monitored properly and protected against, they can really affect their health. So, you know, ask somebody that you know, a friend or a relative, to tell you their story. And you would be surprised. You're not asking them to do something that is going to cause them to go into, you know, to bring up their cancer again, and all of a sudden they're going to have it. It doesn't work like that.
No, not.
And most people, I think, would be happy to sit down and tell you about their story, and to say, I'm glad you're interested in, because being an advocate for cancer research is a very good thing.
You got to finesse it. You're absolutely correct. Everything you said is spot on. But what I discovered, people like me, a lot of folks who have cancer or fighting it don't want to talk about it because they think they did something wrong. Like when they told me I had it, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anyone. My God, I did something wrong with it. And I found out there's a lot of people out there that are kind of hesitant. Also, what I found, because I'm a big advocate of communicating, I think if we communicate with each other, we learn something, we raise the bar of excellence, if you will. When I talk with someone and I say, well, I'm fighting cancer. Oh, you do? And then, oh, my dog, my cat, my wife, my friend, my buddy, he has cancer, and going on and on. I kid you not, every single time, probably about 50 times when I'm talking with people, it's related to cancer. Then you get into it, and they get comfortable talking with it, and then they get more comfortable approaching someone who has it, because everyone's concerned. What do I say? What don't I say? How can I be of assistance and all? Having someone just tell their story, I think is a very good way. If it helps them navigate from where they are to where they've been, and appreciate the whole process. But talking. You're right. Talking with people, getting them talking. People who don't have cancer, being mindful of it. That's why I say learn something about it. If you want to get specific, learn something about CAR T-cell therapy. And then when you talk with someone, you have a better baseline to discuss with.
I think when you want to talk to somebody about their cancer journey, I think really the key is to explain to them your interest is in learning more about it so that you can be an advocate. It's not just that you want to fill some time by hearing a story and say, well, there but for the grace of God go I. It's not that. It's not about that. It's about educating me about what you went through. Because when you want to have that conversation with a congressperson or a representative or somebody, you want to be able to talk to them not only about medication, about the nature of the illness, about the prevalence of the illness, but also about insurance, about VA care and coverage. So all sorts of different aspects. When you only talk to them about one thing, that gives them a chance to ignore a lot. And so, I'm a big advocate of just listening to people. And say, tell me your story, what happened, and, where are you at now, and what can we do to make things better for you?
That's what I'm saying. How can I help?
Yeah, for sure.
How can I help?
Sure. Well, listen, Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me and telling your story, and this is a perfect episode to start off Leukemia Awareness Month. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. One last note. I just discovered I now have prostate cancer.
Oh. Went
in the MRI, CT scan, and it's like, Lord, give me a break. So we got the CAR T, we got the leukemia, pretty much where we're tracking it, and now we got to deal with this too. It's going to turn out okay.
Yeah.
Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah.
That's my battle cry.
For sure. Well, we wish you all the best.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you, Larry.
Listeners, we'll have another episode for you next Monday morning at 0500. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. We're on YouTube and Wreaths Across America Radio. So thanks for listening.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.